There are people who disappear, and eventually the world slowly forgets they ever existed. But sometimes, the most terrifying part isn't that someone goes missing. It's the way they vanish from life itself, as if they were never there at all. No messages, no phone calls, no social media, no digital footprint left behind. To this day, Jade Colvin's body has never been found. But one statement made by the prime suspect led investigators to believe they may have figured out exactly what happened to the 14-year-old girl. In today's episode of Real Criminal Stories, we're diving into one of the most haunting missing person cases in Iowa. A case where the deeper investigators looked, the stranger everything became. Because the unsettling part is this: Jade Colvin was not the type of person who simply disappeared forever. She had run away many times before, but every single time, she came back. This time, she didn't. And that's the detail investigators couldn't ignore. Friends described Jade Colvin as cheerful, creative, and full of personality. She loved art, enjoyed dyeing her hair, and always wanted to express herself in her own unique way. People who knew Jade often said she had a very special energy about her. But behind that image was a deeply unstable childhood, an unstable family environment, a mother struggling with personal issues. And eventually, Iowa's child welfare system placed Jade into foster care when she was just 13 years old. That's where things started becoming complicated. Because Jade hated feeling controlled. She frequently ran away from temporary placements, constantly moved from place to place. Investigators later said Jade had learned how to hide from a very young age. She changed hairstyles, changed her appearance, sometimes disappeared for days or even weeks. But there was one extremely important detail. No matter how far she ran, Jade always found a way to contact friends or family. A text message, a Facebook comment, a late-night phone call. Anything to let people know she was still out there. That's why many people struggled to believe Jade voluntarily disappeared forever. Because if she truly wanted to cut everyone off, why had she never done that before? Then came the summer of 2016, and suddenly, everything stopped. No one heard from Jade again. At first, law enforcement classified the case as a runaway juvenile case, and honestly, that wasn't surprising. Jade's profile matched a familiar pattern investigators often encountered: a troubled teenager, frequent runaway history, constant movement. But this is the part that deeply confused investigators. Runaway teens usually resurface somewhere, at least online, at least through a phone, at least through someone they know. Jade didn't. She almost completely disappeared from the digital world overnight. And for a 14-year-old girl in 2016, that was nearly unheard of. Think about it for a moment. An American teenager during the age of Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. How does someone completely disappear from the internet for years? No new accounts, no logins, no phone activity, no banking activity, no digital traces whatsoever. Could a teenage girl truly sever every connection to the outside world on her own? Or did someone make sure she no longer could? As the years passed, Jade's family and friends continued posting messages online searching for her. "Jade, please call us. We're still here. No one is mad at you." Every year on her birthday, those messages appeared again. And every year, there was no response. What made things even stranger was that when Jade's mother died in 2019, Jade never appeared. That was the moment many people began believing this was no longer an ordinary missing person case. Everything started to change when a team of Iowa investigators reopened the case in 2022. They went back to the beginning, retraced Jade's final known movements, analyzed old social media accounts, recovered forgotten messages buried for years. And eventually, one location kept appearing in the data: Decorah, Iowa. A small, isolated town that felt almost disconnected from the outside world. Investigators discovered that before disappearing, Jade had been brought to a farm there by her mother. The owner of the property was James Bachmersky, a man Jade's mother had met online. Investigators later said this was the moment the case completely shifted direction. Because from that point on, the question was no longer, where is Jade? It became, what happened at that farm? According to witnesses, Jade was only supposed to stay there temporarily. Her mother was dealing with legal issues and planned to come back for her later. On the surface, it sounded reasonable. But the disturbing part was that nobody could fully explain why a 14-year-old girl was being left in an isolated location with men she barely knew. Was it simply a temporary arrangement? Or was it a decision people would later regret forever? One of James Bachmersky's sons, Brian, said he and Jade became friends quickly. They went out for pizza together, took photos, and spent time talking like normal teenagers. And this is where the case became even more haunting. Those photographs were the last known images ever taken of Jade. In the photos, she's smiling. She looks completely normal. No one could have imagined that only days later, she would disappear forever. Brian said the last night he saw Jade was before leaving for his overnight shift at Walmart. According to him, they continued texting after midnight. The conversation seemed completely ordinary. Jade asked if he was tired, asked how work was going. She even suggested talking during his break. There were no signs of fear, no signs she was in danger. Then suddenly, Jade stopped replying. Forever. And that became the moment many investigators believed something may have happened that very night. Because after those final messages, Jade completely vanished from the world. No one ever saw her again. Investigators later said it was the absolute silence that made them suspect homicide. Everything shifted again when police discovered an old cell phone that once belonged to James Bachmersky. The phone had been abandoned inside an old storage building for years. And inside it, investigators found a collection of photos that had never been publicly seen before. Photos of Jade at the farm, photos from a bonfire gathering, photos of the kitchen, photos of a bedroom. At first glance, they seemed harmless, but then investigators noticed something very small. The house, which witnesses described as normally messy and chaotic, appeared unusually clean in photos taken shortly after Jade disappeared. A bed had also been replaced. And that's when investigators became seriously concerned. Why was there such a sudden change? Was it simply normal cleaning? Or was someone trying to erase evidence? And if something really had happened inside that room, what exactly caused everything to be changed so quickly? During later interviews, James Bachmersky made several statements investigators considered deeply unusual. At one point, he reportedly said, "I'll go to the grave with this." It was a short sentence, but to investigators, it felt like a door had slightly opened. Because in criminal investigations, sometimes the way a person reacts can matter more than the answers themselves. If he was completely innocent, why mention taking something to the grave? What exactly was he referring to? A secret? A fear? Or a truth he never intended to reveal? Even today, that statement remains heavily debated. But for investigators, the pieces seemed to point in one direction. The last person known to see Jade, deleted messages, unusual changes inside the house, a total disappearance from the digital world, and the growing feeling that someone was trying to erase Jade from memory itself. In 2024, James Bachmersky was charged with second-degree murder. What made the case especially controversial was this: Jade Colvin's body had still never been found. No clear DNA evidence, no murder weapon, no eyewitnesses. So how did a jury still return a guilty verdict? That question continues to divide opinions. Prosecutors argued that the totality of circumstantial evidence formed a logical chain too strong to ignore. The defense argued that nobody could even prove Jade was dead. But after only a few hours of deliberation, the jury found James Bachmersky guilty. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Yet for Jade's family, the case still isn't truly over, because they still haven't been able to bring her home. No burial site, no proper funeral, no final goodbye. Only old photographs and memories of a girl who tried to stay positive despite a deeply unstable life. Perhaps what makes this case so haunting isn't just the mystery itself. It's the feeling that Jade was the kind of child society often overlooks. A runaway teenager, another troubled case file. A girl growing up surrounded by chaos. And sometimes, those are the children people stop listening to first. If Jade hadn't simply been labeled as just another runaway, would things have turned out differently? If investigators had acted sooner, could she have been found? And more importantly, is there still someone out there who knows exactly what happened to Jade Colvin on that final night?